checking out my ribbons at the Washington Parish Fair. Got quite a few here. I'm in the process of making Mayhaw jelly this morning. Now, if you're from the South, you probably know what Mayhaw jelly is and what Mayhaws are. But if you're from a different part of the country, then you may not have ever heard of them. The Mayhaw, and I thought I had some to show you, but recently we had a hurricane and we lost some things that were in the refrigerator freezers, and that bag of Mayhaws was one of the things that we lost. So I don't have any to show you. They get ripe in late April, early May, but it looks like a little apple, and it's not quite as big as a cherry, a little bit smaller, about the size of the end of your thumb at the largest. And they're red, and when they're ripe, and they look very much like a little small apple. They're very tart, they're not good to eat, and the only thing I know that they are good for is making jelly, and they make fantastic jelly. So it's our family favorite. My sister has the trees, so that's where we get the Mayhaws. But you can find them growing wild near water, near rivers and creeks and boggy places. But anyway, when I get them, I go ahead and boil them down, wash them good, boil them down, and can the juice in jars so that I can make the jelly whenever I want to, whenever it's convenient and I need it. And let me show you. Now, what I'm going to use today is the older. This juice is the oldest that I had. It's actually 5 years old. And the jelly, you won't be able to tell the difference. Now, this is some that I canned 2 years ago. And if you can see, the juice gets a little bit darker over time, but not much. So the recipe is 5 cups of juice and 7 cups of sugar. Now recently the pectin packets, the little flyer in it and the recommendations for the recipes that you use have changed the Mayhaw to 7 and 9, 7 cups of juice and 9 cups of sugar. But I've been making Mayhaw jelly for many years by the same recipe. I know that it works, and I just have not tried it, because if it doesn't set properly at 7 and 9, I wouldn't want to have to go to the trouble of recooking it, reboiling it. So I've just used, I will try it eventually, but so far I've only used the recipe that I've used for years of 5 and 7. Okay, so I use the same measuring cup for sugar and juice. I use this one, and I measure to the top. So I know that I'm getting the same measurement for every cup. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, I always pre-measure so that when I actually get started cooking, I'm not having to stop and measure anything. So here's my 7 cups of sugar. Now I'm going to use the same cup and measure the juice. And I have my Dutch oven, my stainless steel Dutch oven that I'm going to use. Okay, so I'm measuring. One, again to the top. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we do have these jars that hold 5 cups, so those are the ones I usually use to can my Mayhaw Juice, I'm sorry. Okay, so I've used the same measuring cup. Now I'm going to add my Fruit Pectin, and I use the bulk pectin because I make so much. It saves a lot of money that way. If you don't make that much, then it's perfectly fine to go ahead and buy the individual packets. But I use 4 tablespoons of the bulk Fruit Pectin, even though the recommendation is 3. Okay. So there's the 4 tablespoons of Fruit Pectin. Now I'm going to use my large stainless steel spoon, no aluminum, not for anything that touches the jelly, the juice or anything. So I'm going to go ahead, let me turn this so you can see my pot where I have my 5 cups of juice. I'm going to turn the burner on high. And I'm going to add the Fruit Pectin, 4 tablespoons. Okay, at this point you don't have to stir all the time, but I like to stir it until the pectin is dissolved. I always use a bowl for my spoon rest because later in the process we'll have to start skimming off the foam. Now at this point, if you want to, you can add 1/4 of a teaspoon of butter, not margarine, but butter, and that will keep it from foaming so much. But I really don't like to add any fat at all to my jelly, so I normally don't do that. Some kinds, and jam, mainly jam, is where I use the butter, because jam has a tendency to foam pretty bad, some of it, and it's hard to scoop it off because if you start skimming the foam, then you're getting the fruit out, and I don't like to do that. Okay, so in these other pots here, I have my the jars, and they've been in boiling water for more than 10 minutes, actually about 20 minutes, so they're sterilized and ready to go. And I have some boiling water here in this pot, and I'm going to actually add some. Don't want it to get too low. Now I'm going to add some more water to the pot because this is what I'll put my lids into. Now back years ago, they recommended that you boil the lids for 10 minutes too, to sterilize them and to get them ready to put on the jars. But the new lids that they make now, you don't have to do that, as long as you have them sitting in the boiling water long enough for the little rubber that actually forms your seal to soften. That's how you get the good seal. So I usually drop those in when the last few minutes that the jelly is cooking. So I'm going to put the lid on the pot and kind of speed up the process. You don't have to do that, and I normally don't, but to make it faster, I'll put the lid on the pot for a few minutes. So the juice has come to a full rolling boil. And I'm going to start adding my sugar. We've added the sugar. And we're going to wait till it comes back to a full rolling boil again. And then we'll start timing it. And if you'll notice, I still have the jars boiling at a full rolling boil. We want them to stay at the same temperature, as high as possible, until we're ready to put the jelly in. Our juice, pectin, and sugar is now back to a full rolling boil. So I'm going to start the timer now. And we're going to cook it for 7 minutes. Now, I have been known to cook my jelly for as long as 9 minutes, but 7, 8, or 9, somewhere between 7 and 9, is a good thing. Don't go over that though, because there is a point where it would be cooked so much till it would not, you'd ruin the gel and mess up the gel. And when I cook the jelly this long, I don't do the boiling water bath. Everything's boiling when I put it together, so it's perfectly safe, and it always seals properly. If I were going to do the boiling water bath, I would only cook it for 1 to 2 minutes. Put it into the jars and then do the boiling water bath for 5 minutes. I'm going to go ahead now and drop my lids down into the boiling water. And this recipe usually makes about 9 8-ounce jelly jar size jars of jelly. Or 4.5 pints. Okay, the timer's going off, so I'm going to turn the fire off the jelly, out from under the jelly. And I'm going to skim whatever needs skimming. Now I'm going to turn the jars over. Sometimes I sterilize them right side up, and sometimes, because they're so hot to turn over, okay, so here we go. Now you can use a ladle and do this, or you can pour, whichever you prefer. It's faster to pour. You do want to leave about a ½ inch headspace. And it looks like it's exactly 9 this time. Sometimes you don't get quite as many. I'm going to take a spoon now and finish skimming. Okay, and that one's a little bit too full, so I'm going to move a couple of spoonfuls over to a different one. Okay, we're going to take a clean cloth and clean off my rims. Make sure I get a good seal. If there's anything left on the rims, it might cause the jar not to seal, or if it does seal, it may come unsealed later. Now I'm going to put the lids on. Okay. So I have a prepared space. I always keep a thick towel on the counter somewhere, so they're out of the way. And I'm going to tighten these, but do not over tighten. That's not a good thing either. Okay, so I managed to drop one. I'm going to get another lid and put it into the still hot water. So I'll let these jars set for at least 24 hours, and I'll come back and wash them, so if there's any sticky on them, I can take care of that. Here. So this is what our Mayhaw jelly looks like. It's beautiful and it's absolutely delicious. If you were going to compare it to something else, it's close in some ways to apple, but it's much more flavorful than apple. The last step will be, when I wash the jars tomorrow, label them with Mayhaw and the date, so that I'll know I can use up the oldest first. So if you found this video helpful, please like and share. And thanks for stopping by.